I grew up in rural North Louisiana in the 1980s, where racism was still very prevalent. I am the descendant of slaves. My grandfather was a sharecropper in the 30s and 40s, and my mother lived through the civil rights era and Jim Crow laws. So when I, like many Black Americans here, make America great again, I'm perplexed. Again, the word again implies that there was a time when America achieved greatness. When was that time? When was America ever great? And great for whom? America has always striven for greatness. It has the ability to be great, but it cannot be great until it is great for everyone. And as a Black American, I can tell you that it has never been great for my people. I recall the first time that I was ever called the N-word. I was 10. He was 7. I can recall growing up in a town where the population was fairly even among Blacks and whites, but my school was 90% Black. And when I say a small town, I'm talking small, like 1,000 people. But why was my school 90% Black? That was because many white parents chose to bus their children to another public school in a nearby town instead of attending our school, because that other public school had a larger percentage of white population. I remember when the state decreed that you must attend the public school in your town of residence. So many white people, white parents, chose to pull their children out of that nearby public school and send them to a private school even further away because they did not want to integrate. I remember the feeling of opening a brand new textbook, or what I thought was a brand new textbook, only to find that it wasn't new and the contents were 5 years out of date. It was a hand-me-down from another public school, a white one. How do I know this? Because the book had the name and date of an older town resident who attended that nearby public school and used the book when he was my age. So from an educational standpoint, I was always 5 years delayed. I remember being constantly bombarded with Confederate flags and statues, and white townspersons proclaiming that they were merely celebrating Southern pride and heritage. They completely dismissed the fact that this flag was the battle flag for Confederate soldiers whose sole mission was to secure the right to enslave people like me. Before you start, yes, I'll agree with you. The Civil War was about states' rights. The state's right to own and enslave people like me. I remember as a teenager and young adult being called boy rather cavalierly by people in my town. Hey boy, come here. Go fetch that for me, boy. I remember our white high school guidance counselor attempting to dash my aspirations to attend Tulane University. You should be more practical, he said. Maybe a junior college or an BCU is more reasonable, he said. Historically Black college and university. But so you know, I graduated from Tulane University. all of the systematic roadblocks that have been placed in front of me, I beat the odds. The system that was designed to keep me contained to my little impoverished town, and I was supposed to be happy about it, just like many other blacks who are contained to their neighborhoods in larger cities. But I broke through. I was lucky, but many are not. And despite getting out, I've continued to have to fight against a system designed to limit my potential just to get where I am today. And outwardly, I've had to smile with grace, while inside I was hurting and frustrated. Never let them see you sweat, my mom always said. Now, don't get me wrong, I love where I grew up and how I grew up. It made me who I am today. Through all the joys and the heartbreaks. I remember being a teenager and young adult and being followed by store security because they felt that I was up to something nefarious. So inconvenienced that I would literally drop everything that I was planning to purchase and walk out in protest. I remember being in restaurants and consistently overlooked, even though the waitress would make eye contact with me, she would overlook me and go to a white customer. And I remember the devastation the first time I was told, I don't date black people. It's nothing wrong with you, it's just a preference. I remember purposefully concealing my race in attempts to find out if there was some level of compatibility, to find out if there was a connection strong enough that may be able to overcome those racial biases. And sure enough, I developed very strong connections and interests and very strong compatibility. But once I revealed my race, those connections evaporated instantly. Now, I'm not disappointed because those many rejections made me stronger. And I am a happily married man today. But just so you know, if you aren't attracted to someone because of the color of their skin, that's not a preference. That's a racial bias. And it's okay if that is you, but call it what it is. Prejudice, not preference. Now, when it comes to police, I remember my first interaction with the police in my town. As a teenager, I was pulled over by our white cop for failing to stop at a stop sign. To this day, I know that I did in fact come to a stop. But I couldn't react or challenge his assertion because the rules of the talk prohibited such a display. The rules of the talk were explicit. When stopped, immediately pull your license and registration. Place both in your hands and place both hands on the top of the steering wheel or the dashboard. Don't move. Speak only when spoken to, and you better respond with yes, sir, and no, sir. Use the King's English. And if moving is absolutely necessary, you announce your move and you gain permission before doing so. These rules are designed to save my life. And these are the rules that I have to pass to my children in order to save their lives. So to my white friends, I ask you, think about your interactions with police. Did you receive the talk? Would you feel comfortable challenging a cop's assertion that you committed an offense? Were you fearful of your life during that interaction? Did your body physically seize when you saw the blue lights behind you? My body did, and it still does. Likely, you don't, because that's the advantage your skin color gives you.